Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And today I just wanted to talk quickly about priorities and values and what is important in life. So, if you see by the image I have up there, I make it very, very clear what is the most important thing in life because everything stems from here. So, we see a beautiful pregnant lady and a glowing and doting father with his newborn babe. Why is this so important? And why is it that culture nowadays is outright fighting against it? Well, when you have a family unit, you have the only group of people, the only sovereign group that you have control over. You don't get to tell other people what to do. You technically shouldn't be doing that. You have to agree and negotiate and cooperate with other people. But with your family, you as a man are the head of the family. You as a woman are the head of your children, and of course, you have a collaborative relationship with your husband. So it is the only group of people, the only um, unit that has a strong tie to one another, and it is an unbreakable bond. Unfortunately, society has done a very good job chipping away and chipping away at it so as to break this bond. We see this by the single motherhood rate. We see this by the um, rate of men checking out of marriage, of fatherhood, of relationships, even. So, what do we do to combat this? Well, in my opinion, and I think it is a pretty valid point, the best thing you can do is to sort out your priorities. Now, as everything in life, there is a hierarchy of priorities. Not everything has equal value or urgency. So, what is the most high value? Well, of course, to those who are believers, God is the highest value. But from God, what follows? Well, family should follow. That should be after number one, that should be number two. So, think about it like this from the top down. If you don't value the life and creation made by your creator, then you will not value anything that stems from it. Everything is under his providence and his domain. Now, following on that, God created man and woman, right? And of course, he told them to be fruitful and multiply. So now consider this. If you don't value your own child, your own offspring, then how can anyone trust you to act morally or ethically if people are so willing to kill innocent life? Because it is life. Following on from that, you've also shown that you don't value yourself. If you don't value yourself, then how can you expect others to value you? You've already shown that you don't value yourself. Why would anyone trust you, respect you, want to help you, want to prioritize your needs over theirs or for as if, over the greater good? They wouldn't, and they shouldn't, because you don't waste your efforts on someone who is willing to destroy themselves and their family. Now, continuing forward, you also have to value your environment, your home. There are many aspects to your home. The first being your physical home where you live. Following on from that, you have your community. If you don't love your neighbor as yourself, then why would you expect your neighbor to care about you, to love you, to want to help you, to have compassion onto you? You wouldn't, or you couldn't have that expectation. After the community comes the nation, your country. If you don't love your country and countrymen and women, then what do you stand for? What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to protect if not your own home? If not your own family, if not your own community, if not your own child, if not your own spouse? What exactly is your highest priority? Is there some other country you prefer to die for? Well, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I know people say that, and I know that sounds mean, but of all the faults of my home country, I love it. I am grateful to it. It gave me a chance to live and grow. You have to, you take the good with the bad. That's how life is. So, you have to also, now in a more abstract sense, you have to prioritize truth and honesty. Why? Because someone who is a liar has either dulled down or outright diminished their ability to both detect the truth in others, which gives them a terrible paranoia, which they always think everyone else is lying, everyone is out to get them. And that is because their own mechanism for truth telling and truth detection is faulty. So, when we are liars, we take others to be liars too, even if they're not, because we can't tell. So, you cannot possibly expect any sort of reciprocal trust, respect, honesty, decency, love, care, support from anyone else if we don't start with ourselves. So I will recap. You have to first love who created you. Love your mother and your father. Even if they were not good parents, they gave you that chance to live. If they were good parents, you should be doubly grateful. Love your creator. Unfortunately, there is only one creator. I personally don't subscribe to any other, doctrine, but in my personal beliefs, I think that is the only doctrine. Everything else is a counterfeit. So, you love God first. You love your family second. And you must love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you don't know how to give love to others. You cannot be a selfish person. You have to be a self-aware person. You have to know that there's limits to how much you can extract from people, but there should not be, within reason, there should not be too many limits on how giving you are to others, because the point of giving is not for you to be exploited by others. It's for you to show that love is giving, it's caring. Like in Corinthians, people use this verse a lot when they get married. Love is kind, love is patient, and all these things. You're not meant to be a leech sucking from other people. You're supposed to love others. And, I've said this before, a lot of giving equals a lot of receiving. If everyone is giving, then at the same time, everyone is receiving. So, after you are able to properly love yourself, then you must love your spouse. Following on from that, you will ultimately love your child because your spouse gave you an, a replica of yourself, and the other, the two of you together have made this being. And that being is equally both yours. And it physically resembles you, spiritually resembles you, and it is a gift from God. So the three of you together, husband, wife, and God, are made in this union of your child. Then, the more you produce fruits, your children, your community, the more it grows. Naturally, you have to encase that community in a place, your nation. If you don't love your nation, then you don't love your neighbor. If you don't love your nation, then you don't love your home, yourself, because you are part of that place. For all its faults, try to change it, try to fix it, not try to, you know, do that revolutionary game where you want to recreate the world in your image. Try to correct the errors to make it in God's image. because he did it right the first time. It's us that made the mistakes. After you can love your nation, then you know that other nations also love themselves and also are your neighbors. Then you can have a, I don't want to say global, but a unity amongst your neighbors, right? The home next to you is your neighbor, while the country next to you and even around the world is still your neighbor. We are all brothers and sisters, so to speak. So I hope that gives a better impression or understanding of how we should prioritize our values. People often put work as their first value. Work is only there to provide and sustain you. And there are many types of work. You don't have to work in a corporation. You don't have to work in a factory. You don't have to work as someone's servant or whatever. There are many types of work you can do. You can be self sufficient. You can, not everyone has property, but even if you live in a small apartment or something like that, you can always try to sustain yourself as much as you can. Another thing is that if you don't have good ties with other people, you know, how can you share? You're supposed to share with one another. So, we used to live in a barter and trade economy. What does that mean? That means what you have is of value and what someone else has is of value, and you negotiate how much of what you have and they have is a fair trade for you to exchange. Okay, what does that sound like? It sounds like what we understand to be capitalism in probably the more unadulterated form. It's a division of labor, it's specialization. You give what you can give, they give what they can give, and you all benefit from that. I know the reason why Marxism is popular is because it's a perversion of that idea, to each according to his need, each according to his ability, something like that. I recall when I was reading through the Bible, something like that was one of the verses jumped out at me, and I thought, that's where he got it from. Or I think that's where he got it from. Because there is some truth to that. The problem is you can't do it by force. The beauty of love and caring and sharing is you do it because you trust each other, because you want to help one another. For example, if, some people have siblings and not all of them get along and they say, oh, take your little brother, take your little sister with you. And they're like, oh, I don't want to. Well, no one wants to do things they don't want to do. But when you are friends, when you do love each other, you will go above and beyond what you want to do. So when people think of giving and sharing, they do feel like, oh, I'm being taken for a ride, you're just using me. No, you're not meant to be used. You're meant to want to give. If you don't want to give, then that's a different story. So again, work is a sort of necessary thing that you have to do, but there's many ways of doing it. You don't have to follow this particular system that we're doing. There are other ways of doing it, you can work around the barriers that are in your place. You have to be creative, but there's a reason. Creative, given to us by the Creator. We are not, you know, we're not drones on an input-output level. We are able to think and produce. So use that skill. Other things like having fun and partying and all this stuff, that's not a priority, or not at least a high priority. Entertainment and enjoyment and good cheer, those are, those are good things. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't be a party girl forever. You can't be a party boy forever. There's nothing wrong with getting together with your community, having a drink or whatever, sharing some laughs. That's wonderful. That keeps your soul, happy. That's great. But it can't be in the top 5 priorities. You have to do what you have to do, and then you can think about it. Why do people say work hard, play hard? Well, don't play too hard. Otherwise, you put those two things on an equal footing. Some cliches are really good, and some of them are really subversive because you're saying work hard and play hard. You have to work hard, but you don't have to play too hard because, as I said, they're not equal things. Some people take too much stock in leisure or leisure, as the posh people say. Look, too much leisure is just lethargy and sloth and laziness. You don't do anything when you're doing nothing. It's pretty obvious. So, yeah, relax. Yes, take some time for yourself. But, people saying, oh, we need a half a week work week. I don't think that's necessarily good for people. You can have maybe, there's a reason we have a certain amount of hours in a day that people work. There's a reason that we have days off because you need them. You need to rest. But too much rest, you can't get out of that habit. Then it's difficult to get back into, it's like inertia. You can't get back into the moment of work. And you don't want that. You don't want it to disrupt what you're doing. If you want to work super hard and then have a longer rest, that's why people have vacations. But again, people seem to just work towards this vacation or work towards this party or working for the weekend, like that song goes. There's other things that you should put ahead of that because once those things are in place, that rest will feel so much more restful. Do you ever come back from a week, 2 week, month holiday and you're still stressed? You didn't get a chance to rest because you're running around doing all these activities on your itinerary and all the rest of it. Look, we got it all backwards. And there's a reason why it's not fulfilling and satisfying. So, as I said, try to put those priorities in their proper place. I was listening to a pastor one time and he was saying, do people not understand what the word worship means? Worship doesn't mean, hands and knees, oh yes, master. Worship means to have the highest value in its proper place, to put God first. That is why we call it worship, right? You put the highest value in it, ranked in its proper place, and that's what it's supposed to be. So, anyway, take from that what you will. If you have any comments you'd like to add, please do so, and I would happily respond to them. And I hope that you got something out of it. I know it seems a little bit obvious, but sometimes the obvious things need repeating because too often the wrong messages get a lot of airtime and the obvious things, the common knowledge slips through the cracks because no one reaffirms those things and you think those are passe, those are old fashioned. It's not old fashioned. It's very much in fashion, or at least it should be. And I think our job is to try to preserve the things that are tried and true that work. And I hope that it helps you. And sorry about some of the noise. We're doing some work outside, so I hope it wasn't too distracting. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.